Good evening to you all, our dear viewers. My name is Emmanuel Udeke. Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk. And every Tuesday, you can be sure that I will definitely be on your screen discussing stuff that will build you, build Uganda, and whoever wants to do things the right way. At least I am not one who will lead you to doing stuff the wrong way. Otherwise, I'm happy to be here again today on Church of Uganda Family TV, where we enrich lives. Today is Valentine's Day. The entire city is full of red balloons, flowers, and all stuff like that. I am hopeful that those who received flowers, you received flowers. If you didn't receive a flower, it is still okay. And a flower is, sometimes a flower cannot mean exactly what other people think a flower should mean. But nevertheless, we are here today and we'll be discussing love, we'll be discussing relationships, we'll be discussing marriages. And you want to be sure that instead of hanging out there, this talk show will definitely add a brick to your life, to your family, and to your relationship. And so today with me in the studio is a couple, I should say. Is a couple. These are people who have been in the thing. They have tested the deep waters, and you want to be sure you're going to be getting real stuff from these people. And to my extreme right is Engineer Moses Kulabako. You want to be sure this gentleman will definitely get you right stuff. And he comes to us with his dear wife, and today is just going to be a big blast as we'll be discussing this stuff. So you don't want to miss any bit of this. Don't tamper touching your remote unless if you are really in a death sentence. That's when you can touch that remote. But otherwise, today we'll be discussing that, and this couple will definitely be here to teach, put some sense to some young people who are definitely in a relationship and then headed for marriage. So stuff like that is what we'll be discussing today. So to my extreme right is Engineer Moses. Would you like to say hello to our viewers? And greet the Valentiners.
Hello our viewers, we are so glad to have you tuned in to Family TV. And thank you our host for having us. We are really delighted for being with you on a day like this, which is Valentine's Day, a day of expression of love. What an opportunity to us. I pray that we are blessing to the young people out there and to those that are also in marriage already, the way God wants it to be. Thank you.
That's really exciting. That's exciting. You can hear that is engineer. He's an engineer. So you don't want to think he's a farmer, but I'm sure he does a little bit of agriculture as well. and next to him is his dear wife, Engineer Dr. Robinah, if I get it well. But that is his wife, and they are going to be here today, and we'll be discussing quite a lot of stuff. And she comes to us from Makerere University. So she's Engineer Dr. Robinah Kulabako. She's the head of Civil Engineering Department in Makerere University. Welcome, dear.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Now that you're here, the entire university should be here.
Hopefully. Hopefully, yes.
Say hello to our viewers and then we can get to our discussion.
Good evening, our viewers. Thank you very much for making the time to come and sit in front of Family TV. To hear us share with you our experiences. It's an opportunity for us to actually share where the Lord has brought us from, but also it's an opportunity on a day like this to get to share what we believe is what love is all about, and ultimately what marriage is all about actually. So thank you very much.
So Engineer Kulabako is the MD, he's the managing director of Me Computers Ltd, and he also is the chairperson of the Board of Land and Estates in the Diocese of Kampala. So he's a churchman, I should say. He's a churchman. I need to bring a pagan for you. And he sits in the synod of the Diocese of Kampala. So this is I should say, a Christian family that I have seen worth to come and discuss this kind of things. So, engineer, let's start from the young people, because before you get married, you first get to a relationship. Take the first few minutes and guide. What should a relationship be like of a young person who is seriously headed for marriage?
Thank you, our host, and once again, I really want to appreciate for having us and making time for a discussion like this, which I believe will guide quite a number of young people out there on how to relate, especially when you wish the relationship to lead into marriage. On a day like this, which is Valentine's Day, a day where people show love to each other, especially between boys and girls, men and women, husband and wives. Yes, it's really very, very important to discuss a topic like this. And what I could say is that the relationship between man and woman, or boy and girl, must be all done in the context the way God designed it to be. We know at the very beginning of man and woman, it is God who initiated it all and brought Adam and Eve into a relationship of marriage, and where he ordained them to have children. And so it is his thing, and it cannot be done any other way other than God's way. And so all through the Bible, we are guided about how we should relate, especially in terms of man and woman. It should not be anything that is done out of the context that God gave us, and that is before marriage. And so for the young people out there, there is always the right time to start a relationship. And a relationship must be a serious one, which leads into marriage. It shouldn't be just a casual one. And so my guidance would be that always begin a relationship only with the intention of marriage. And it shouldn't be something that is haphazard, where you just begin and with no intentions of leading into marriage, and then you confuse this young girl or the young man, and at the end of the day, you cause heartbreaks. We know very well in the Bible, in Proverbs, in the book of Proverbs, we are guided that he who finds a wife finds a good thing. It is not he who finds anything less of a wife, but a wife is somebody that will only be taken on when it is in marriage. That is what we call a wife. And so this business of having boyfriend, girlfriend, with no intentions of leading into marriage is something that should not be happening. So there is always the right time to get into that. I wouldn't think a person like in primary 7 or senior 1 getting into a relationship that leads into marriage. But there is always that right time for each and every man and woman to start a relationship that would lead into marriage. And what I would say, because it's God's thing, it is God to be put first. Even in a relationship, there must be purity. You must be ready to be very, very pure, and things like sex shouldn't be happening before you've signed yourselves into marriage. And so even as we walk in what we would call courtship, it should be a pure one, where you don't defile each other, and wait until when you've finally been commissioned by God on your wedding day into marriage. So for the young people, I say, keep pure, until that day of marriage, if you're in a relationship that you feel will lead into marriage. And for the marrieds, you know it very well, it was ordained to us, one man, one wife. And not one man, or one woman, but it's one man, one wife. So when you've gotten into the marriage, then you should stick to your wife. We are glad and delighted and thank the Lord as we are here. We are husband and wife, man and woman who are husband and wife, and God has been kind to us that we've been together for the past 26 years. We met at the university when we were all doing our undergraduate, and here we are. We're almost 27. Towards the end of this year, we'll be counting that, and we bless the Lord for that.
26 years down in marriage.
Yes.
Met in campus.
Yes. Very well.
So would one say about around campus time, that would be a fine time or season for somebody to look out for somebody to be with?
Yes, campus time can be a good time, I would say. But it shouldn't be that when you get to campus, then you say, let me start looking out for one. Really, it's you really feel it within you. Having checked out yourself, how ready you are for a relationship, you really feel it within you when you're ready. And it's not anything that is a must that somebody must be in a relationship when it's at university, when they're at university. And actually that has misled quite many. God's timing is different for all of us. Some get married, some find their people when they're still at the university, but others find them much, much later. I normally give an example. In America, Obama became president, I think, when he was around 46, and ruled over Trump, the famous Trump. But Trump came over around 72 years of age, and he was also president. So everybody has his timing and has their timing, and that it would be good you flow within your timing other than forcing things.
Interesting things. There are times and seasons that everybody must follow. You don't want to dance to my shoes. You don't know how big my shoes are. So wait and dance to your music. Doctor, how can a young girl build a relationship leading to marriage? How can a young man build a reasonable relationship leading to marriage?
Thank you, our host, for the question. How can a young girl build a relationship to marriage, and how can a young boy build a relationship to a marriage? Now, I must say here that it's very important that both these two persons have to start by being friends. They have to build the friendship, and this friendship takes time. It's not like the boy walks to the girl and say, hey girl, I am so and so, I love you, can we start a relationship? No. They have to start by being friends, as in friends, normal friends. And in that process, they have to learn one another. It's gradual. You learn this person slowly. You don't force things, you don't force things. You learn this person slowly. You see them from a distance. They also see you from a distance. And slowly by slowly, if it's the Lord's will, because he kept referring to God, you also inquire of the Lord, especially if you're born again. You inquire of the Lord. And the Lord will speak. The Lord always speaks. And he will say maybe, yes, that is the one, or yes, she is the one. And when the time is right, then you're able to speak. But like I said, this friendship takes time, actually. I met my husband, Moses, when we were at the university. We were doing the engineering course. This course was 4 years. So year 1, year 2, year 3, we would see each other and what, but we are friends. Then he started a fellowship in Faculty of Technology. We joined in as members of the fellowship. Then we became even friends, knew each other much more. But it's in the final year that he finally said, now look here, this is what is happening. Do you mind? Yeah, but I could see that we had been friends before. So by the time he proposed, he was not a stranger to me anymore. I thought I had known him many years, and it made it a lot easy to trust this person. And of course, he expressed his interest that the idea why I want to relate with you, ultimately, I want this relationship to end up in a marriage. So I would want to think that when these young people are starting these relationships, they have to know, where is this going to end? Am I only getting into this just for fun, short term, or I made a bet with my friends that I'm going to go out for that girl and I'll get her, we bet how much, because these days these young people do these bets, so I'm going to bet on her how much, these kinds of things. So I think it's very, very critical to ask yourself, if I get into this relationship, where do I want it to end? Do I really love this person that I will love them all the way through, and ultimately they are going to be my wife? But also, as you relate, you realize that both of you are not angels. They are weaknesses. Each party has a weakness, each party has a strength. So you also have to appreciate that, okay, this person has weaknesses, I also have weaknesses. They are not perfect, I'm not perfect, but we can work around this. So even the communication in that relationship, much as you're not yet husband and wife, is very critical. Nothing should be left to chance. That relationship should be without pretense, right? Because these days we have the young people know how to act nicely. He's coming. Let me act like I'm so excited to see him. And then when he goes, he bored me. Oh, please. That pretense. If you are to build a meaningful relationship, there shouldn't be any room for pretense. There shouldn't be any room for hypocrisy. It's very important to be yourself. Be open, be honest, be yourself. And of course, as it starts, you don't have to say many things, because you're trying to learn this person is also trying to learn you. So you don't start by telling them, I was born like this, our background is like this, and then you start bringing all those, No, those things will come with time as the friendship grows. First, appreciate the person, let them appreciate you, Go slowly, one day at a time. Yeah.
Engineer, interesting things from Doctor. She makes a point on differences. How best should we act? Because we are not angels, like she just mentioned. We're bound to just have issues here and there. How should we handle these differences when young people get to a relationship? How should they go through with this kind of differences?
As one gets into a relationship, like you've just mentioned, we are all imperfect and we're not angels. And you can never expect any two people, even if they are twins, that they can be all alike. And so, as we move into relationships, we should be very, very mindful of expectations in there. You can never have it all yourself as you want it. And so there should be that ground, that level ground of compromise, where you say, okay, now that this person of mine has this, how can I cope? And you should be very, very open in the relationship. If you feel uneasy about something with your person that you're with in the relationship, should be very, very open with them. Because we are all work in progress, and you never know, by sharing it, by opening up to this person about how you feel about something, about his character, or anything that is that you see with him or her, it helps for the other person to reflect upon themselves and be able to see how to adjust so as to allow the relationship to flow. Otherwise, we shouldn't be very rigid, but again, we shouldn't compromise in an ungodly way, but we must have realistic expectations, those that are measurable and are easy to attain. Otherwise, it would be very, very hard to find any person who is perfect the way you would want them to be. Actually, for me, what helped me a great deal and what still helps me up to now is to first know I'm not perfect either. And so to know that I'm work in progress, and even my friend is work in progress, and being very, very open with her, and seeing that we talk over issues deeply and see where we can have those concessions, where you say, okay, if this is what she is, let me continue praying for her and praying also for myself to cope, but also helping her to be a better person in whatever I find maybe may not be measuring up as I would wish it to be. So it's all about doing everything in love, because if you found in your friend anything that is kind of like a shortfall or a disappointment on your side or unexpected, not meeting your expectation, you should be able to help this person get better. For me, as a husband, I should make my wife even better than what I found her to be, making her better. And so what are those things where I could be able to cultivate, where I could be able to do something and make her better for for our being together. So we should be very, very mindful of seeing that we help one another to be better people. And in so doing, when you have such a mindset, then you are able to bear your friend even when maybe they don't meet your expectation. And who knows, prayerfully and with the help that you keep doing, keep dishing out to her or him, and also patiently doing it, God will do his work, and he will make this person a better person for you, so that you flow together in a better way.
We're all a work in progress. Our relationships, our marriages are work in progress. Those expectations sometimes are too much, but who knows? Slowly by slowly, God helps us. When we return from the break, more of such will be coming through.
Family TV, enriching lives.
Fellow Ugandans, every 16th of February, we commemorate the life of Saint Janan Luwum, former Archbishop of the province of the Church of Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Bogazaire. You are all welcome to Wigweng, Muchinyi Kitgum district for this year's national celebration on Thursday, 16th February. Come and we learn from the example of his faith and testimony. Strengthen religious and government partnerships for better socio-economic transformation. Get a life-transforming message as we reflect on the late Archbishop Janan Luwum and encourage unity and working together for peace and national development. This message is brought to you by the Directorate for Ethics and Integrity, Office of the President, providing leadership in rebuilding ethics and integrity for sustainable national development.
Let's talk.
Let's talk.
Let's Talk is an uncensored program on Family TV that attempts to answer questions that are unanswered within our church settings. Questions like sex and money, drugs and alcoholism, prophecy and prophets in our country. So, catch us every Tuesday on Family TV as we explore different topics and make attempts to answer the different life topics. With me, Emmanuel Odeke, let's talk. Welcome back from that short break. I have always said it here, if you don't take a break off, you will break down. So we didn't want to break down, that's why we had to take a break, so we can come back refreshed. Still in the studio with me is Engineer Moses Kulabako and his dear wife, Engineer Dr. Robinah Kulabako, comes to us from Makerere University. And they are doing a lot of ministry among young people. Engineer Moses is a patron of Uganda Youth Anglican Missioners. And so he's so much with the young people, and you'd easily tell from the way he brought these matters clearly that he's so much rooted with these young people. Now we want to switch to the marriages. What is happening with the marriages? For some people today, marriage is just a flop. They look at it as a waste of time, and so they prefer to do it their own way. So, Doctor, if we would look at marriages today, what would be your assessment? You know, sometimes when we are so much in church, and you think everyone's marriage is almost like yours. But if you decided to follow up what is happening outside church, it is, I don't want to say it is a mess, but there are a lot of struggles. There are a lot of young girls playing around with people's husbands. There are big men who have not respected themselves. They are going around with every kind of young girl. They are not mindful of the age. They are not scared of defilement and all these kind of things. What is happening around?
When I look at what's happening with marriages today, I actually realize that even among the Christians, you will find that the institution to some extent is not being taken serious. Some could have got into the institution with various motives or reasons, and the commitment is actually not there. And some, it could have been out of excitement, oh, I'm getting married, oh, blah, 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 without carefully thinking through that this is meant to be a lifelong commitment until death do us part. And then for some, when they get in, they think that, okay, I'm going to get married and all my problems will be done away with. So this part of the vows, which is for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, ceases to work for them. Once the sickness part comes, the poorer part comes, they say we are quitting. So at the end of the day, you realize that the institution is not being taken serious. People are selfish in there. It's about I, me, and myself. If I am happy, I'll stay in. If I'm not happy, I will walk out. And remember, before God, you've made a vow. It's a covenant between you and the gentleman you've got married to, or the wife you've got married to. God is a witness, and as you make these vows, you are making it clear until death do us part. So it's very, very sad to see that people walk out, people separate, and completely forget the vows that they made before the Lord, which makes it look like, I normally use this phraseology, a drama of sorts, you know, like they were like acting. Now it's like the acting is over. Me, I'm not happy with this man. I don't love him anymore, or I don't love this woman anymore. I am quitting, you know, and there is no effort whatsoever to work at things. And in the recent past, there's been something like there's a struggle between the gentleman and his wife, and let's say you're trying to talk to them, but no, you look here, I think you need to sit and we talk through this issue, and one can come out and say, no, we have irreconcilable differences. There's nothing like irreconcilable differences in a marriage. It's just the two of you who are simply refusing. I could call it a battle of egos, where you think I can do without him, he can do without me, so there is no need for discussion. I'll never forget, we pray from St. Francis Chapel, Makerere University, and as part of the ministry there, we participate in premarital counseling, where you have to counsel couples before marriage, and this goes on for about 3 months, actually. 3 months. So we had a couple we counseled, and they walked down the aisle, beautiful, we're excited. But before the year ended, they were separating, they were divorcing. Our efforts to try and come in landed on deaf ears. No, the differences are irreconcilable. And the door closed, and everyone moved their own way. It was extremely sad, because then you could see that throughout the premarital counseling, most likely they never took what we're sharing very serious, that you're making a commitment, you're going to leave any other man, you're going to leave any other woman, you're going to become one, you're going to walk two like this with God at the center, and when you have issues, bring them to the Lord in prayer, because with the Lord at the center, nothing can fail. So where people say irreconcilable differences and they are born again, I think that is not true. Because I want to believe that as long as God sits on the throne, nothing can fail. God never fights and loses a battle. And if you're very faithful and you with sincerity of heart and go to him, confess to each other, talk very openly and honestly to one another, that marriage can be rebuilt to even become a much stronger marriage, because God doesn't waste experiences. Yeah, so I've got to appreciate that it's an institution, many are playing in it, but again there are those that are also taking it extremely serious and saying, look here, if you're not ready, don't get in. Get in if you know you're going to hang in there, remain faithful, stick to your wife until God chooses. I take him, I take her, because that is what it is. And trust the Lord to actually build that marriage, make it stronger, make you strong, use you to minister and bless other couples, because it's an institution that God made. And the reasons are very clear in the Bible for us to be able to have godly offspring, for his gospel to move on from one generation to another, and it's an institution God uses to demonstrate his love. If you can love your fellow human being, if I love my husband, he loves me, that in a way exhibits the love the Lord has for us, each one of us, although God's love is much, much more than this, but there's a lot God teaches others out there using this institution of marriage. So it's rather sad when you see people playing in it, playing around with it, not taking it serious, and people looking for different kinds of things when they are there. When they don't find, and they think they should quit. No, it shouldn't be.
Quitting is not the option.
No,
it isn't.
No,
an
it's not an option. It's not
Engineer,
an option.
This thing people are calling love, can love hold a relationship till death do us part? Can love hold a marriage till death do us part?
Yes, very much so. Actually, we are created by God, and God is love. And if we go back to the Bible, we know it very, very well that love was emphasized and actually helped summarize all the laws into 2 laws. Loving God, the first one, and also loving your neighbor. Those were the 2 laws, summary of the laws that we have. And when we get there, we realize that actually love is what holds all people together. We have a good example of Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ came to the world, it was because of love. And love led him up to the cross, to the point of death. And the Bible tells us to follow his example, the example of the way he loved. So when we talk of, when we swear, till death does us part, indeed, it is something that is very, very possible. And it's possible because unless you have love between the two of you, then you can never keep together till that point of death separating you. So love is something that is very, very possible, but when we have to exercise it, we use the standard that the Lord used against his church. That love that could actually lead him to the point of death. And no wonder, even in our vows as we get into marriage, that is the standard that we use. I'm reminded of a certain gentleman. He passed on like 5 years back, when they attacked him with his wife in their bedroom. And when they were there, the attackers wanted to hack his wife. And this gentleman instead put there his body, so that is the one hacked instead of his wife. You know, that is the love we are talking about. Love above self, where you feel for your wife or your husband when they are at pains, where you feel, where you're able to stand in their shoes and you really feel for them. That empathy that we need to have within our relationships as married people. So it is very, very possible that you can love, and we've seen so many couples who've lived it and indeed upheld that vow which they made at their on their marriage day. So it is very, very possible. Where there is love, nothing can fail, so I can say.
Very, very interesting things. I wonder how many men in today's generation and time can say, for the sake of love, let me die and let my wife live, like the way engineer has just narrated. Most men, I'm not sure, I don't want to be judgmental to that point, but just check yourself out there and see, would you really put yourself for your wife? Would your wife put herself for you? Now, Doctor, how do we build a thriving marriage? A marriage that everybody out there looks at and they're like, wow. I don't mean a marriage full of pretense, where you're in the house and you're punching each other, and then you come out and there's that faked smile. I mean a marriage that inspires people to get married.
To get married. Thank you very much. How do we build a thriving marriage? As a born-again Christian, my husband is born again as well, I'll start by saying that it's very important to have Christ at the center, because he's the one who started this whole marriage institution. And I think when you have Christ at the center, then it is him you look to guide you on how best should I be in this marriage. And the scriptures are very clear. God normally relates the church to a bride and he's the groom, right? So in this marriage, if you're to build a thriving marriage, it's very important to have that relationship with Christ first and foremost, so that you're able to relate with your husband, a horizontal relationship with your husband. And when you do that, then you realize that your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding are very limited. So you need Christ to grant you his wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Because as this marriage moves on, like I mentioned in the beginning, you will find that you're not an angel, your husband is not an angel. There are those weaknesses, there are those strengths. So how do you deal with those weaknesses? But again, how do you affirm his strengths? right? So that he feels appreciated, he feels needed, he feels, yes, when I see my wife, or when the wife sees the husband, yes, you know, my best friend has come. It's really work. You have to put in effort. Many times you hear people saying that, I wish, okay, let's say, let me use my husband as an example. And then I tell Moses, I wish you were like John. You get? So things like that. Moses is Moses. So in a thriving marriage, the wife struggles to make sure she learns Moses' needs. What do Moses' needs look like? When Moses is angry, what does it turn into? What makes him happy? What can I do to make him happy? Or what makes him happy? Or how can I support him? You know, you ask questions like, how do I support you? Or how do I pray for you? You know, and as that goes on, he starts appreciating that I'm actually being cared for. My wife looks out for me. My husband looks out for me, you know. And with time, actually, you realize that the weaknesses cease to be a big deal. You know, the weaknesses cease to be a big deal, and now it's those strengths you're working towards to make sure that they come out. Because each one of us, God has gifted us differently. So if the wife is able to support the husband in his gifting, and the husband is able to support the wife in their gifting, before you know it, people around you will notice. When I grow up, I want to be like those two people. You get it? So there's a way God works it out. It's a process, it takes time, but you, the two parties in the marriage, have to be very intentional. You don't leave things to guesswork. You have to be very intentional. When things are not right, you don't quarrel in front of the children. For example, you can go in the bedroom and say, but this was not okay, you did this, I did not like this, but maybe we can make it better if we act like this. You talk things out, heart to heart, and then you leave the room when you've settled, everything is okay. You go out there, the children may not even know that you've actually had a major quarrel, you know. They'll just see things moving on as normal. Then also one thing that has actually helped us is what I would call a family altar, where we pray together with our children, and then we also have a couple altar where we pray me and him, like me and him, you know. And those really tend to help a lot, because you bring matters that are potential matters of conflict between you in a marriage. You present them to the Lord. That, Lord, here we are unable to handle this. Please help. Please guide. You know? And also another thing, we each have individual altars. He has his own, I have my own, where you also speak to God about your other, you know, different issues. And that has actually helped us a lot. It has really, really helped us a lot. But I would like to conclude this conversation by saying that thriving marriages, if you're to observe very carefully, most of them have God at the center. Most of them. There is God somewhere in the equation. It's difficult for A plus B equals to C when there is no God anywhere. So I think once God is there, you have a personal relationship with him. The husband has a personal relationship. Then you relate better. And then you work towards, you know, making sure that you build each other up, you support each other. I'll share. By the time I got married to him, when we got married, we had just finished university, by the way. We graduated in January. That same year, in November, we had gotten married. So, I don't know, a few months, yeah. So, we had gotten married. And family was like, you're still too young to... Anyway, we looked very young, but he said we were ready. So, we got married. And I think because we are born again, God helped us to hang in there. To hang in there and then to do the right thing. And I remember when I got opportunities to go for further studies, there was a lot of pressure. You see, you've gotten married, you're leaving the man, you're not going to find a gentleman, and I was like, you know what? He's supporting me to go and do these studies. So if he's really mine, God will keep him, I'll find him, you know. So he really supported me. And in the marriage, in the marriage, God is kind. When I got married to him, I was able to accumulate another 3 degrees by God's grace, but it was because he supported me the whole way through. You know, even when we got children, he stayed around to look after these children as the mother was busy on the plane going for studies here and there and what. He faithfully stayed and supported, you know, these children, and that caught a lot of attention from many, you see. And but how do you do this? And I would say it is really God who is, you know, helping us to do the right thing at the right time in the right place, you know, and in the right place. And personally, I can also confess that irrespective of all those travels where I went all over, I never slept around with any man. No, he's the only man I've ever slept with, right? So it takes God's grace to really anchor you in, for you to hate sin for what it is in a marriage, and then love those things that the Lord loves. So, like they say, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So when you fear the Lord, you will hate the thing he hates, you will love the things he loves. And in the process, if you're married, the marriage will thrive, because you will not commit adultery. On a day like this Valentine, you will not lie to him that I'm at the office, and yet you're in a hotel somewhere with someone's husband. You get, yeah. So the fear of the Lord when you're in a marriage, it also brings on wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and the Lord helps you to keep with right standing, no putting up appearances. You stand there. If they accuse you, say, you bring and see which man I went out, or you bring which woman he has gone out with, you know. That helps also to build the trust between the two of you, you know. And one thing I know is that when trust is broken in a marriage, it's very difficult to bring it back. It is hard, because everything that happens, they may not trust you again, however much you try. So you have to work at not breaking that trust, with God being your helper.
Engineer, we have about 6 minutes still on air. I want you to help someone out there. This talk today is not a usual one I've had here, but I think it is God's purpose. As we speak, there could be people crying out there. A day like this, there are people who are getting apart, their relationships breaking up. There are families that are at a verge, their marriages headed for a flop. And you don't want to see a marriage headed for a relationship would head for a flop, but a marriage, you don't want it. You don't want it to head that direction. In the few minutes remaining, help somebody in that state, because you don't know who you're helping now, and you don't know how many you're speaking to out there, but just help somebody who is at that verge of a dying relationship, of a dying marriage.
What I can say is there is no marriage that is perfect. Every marriage has its struggles. Every marriage oftentimes finds itself with a challenge here and there. And so, like I've said at the very beginning, that we are all work in progress. And indeed, individually we are work in progress, and also together corporately as a couple, we are work in progress. One thing that I've really gotten to appreciate in marriage, and even in other relationships, whether work or anywhere else, is the issue of openness, communication, talking over issues. Because oftentimes when there is a challenge and you just make your conclusions without even talking to the other party, you'll be surprised. I mean, you'll definitely waste away the relationship. But if you moved out and were able to sit and talk over issues, you oftentimes realize that actually maybe you had even some misconceptions somewhere. So what I would encourage people to do is always to be open and communicate and talk over issues. Because sometimes people may imagine, well, let me just dump this one, and maybe he wasn't meant for me, and maybe they are looking out for somebody else out there that seems to be more caring than the one they have. But whichever person that exists in this world, none of us is perfect, none of us is flawless. All of us have our failures somewhere, have our struggles somewhere, and until we get to that point where we are open to each other, we communicate and reconcile, it will be very, very hard to stay together. So I would only encourage people to be very open and communicate. And by the way, when you sit down to talk over issues, at the end of the day, when you are able to agree, you are stronger than even before. And you are both victors in that over that situation. And oftentimes you live as people who can support many other marriages, having come out or emerged out of your situation as victors. So please talk about each and every detail that really bothers you, and you'll be surprised on how God will help you in it. Definitely the talking should be guided also by prayer. Pray over the issues, because ultimately it's God who touches our hearts for a change. And so don't do it just in human wisdom, don't do it in in your strength, but put God at the center of it all, because for him he reaches where you may not be able to reach. And who knows, God can transform this person for the better, and you indeed live happily once again. We've been in marriage for 26 years now, coming 27, and we've had our struggles, many of them. But because we are able to sit together and talk, we have always emerged out winners, we have come out as victors, and we are still counting years in our marriage. So may God really help you, because I know there must be people who are struggling in their marriages. May God really help you to overcome whatever the devil has thrown in your midst. I know he never wishes you well, but with God on your side, you are more than conquerors. You will conquer that situation and emerge better people, to the glory of his name. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Engineer, for making time to come through. Sometimes I tell people here that there are guests you invite, and an hour seems like it is 3 hours. And there are guests you invite, and an hour looks like it is 20 minutes. And then that's what exactly you've made it look like it is just 20 minutes, and I thought we'd have more time, but it's already our time. But thank you so much for coming. Doctor, it's a pleasure having you around.
Thank you very much.